So dobrý večer. Good evening. My name is Przemysl Pela. I'm the head of Czech Center and delighted to welcome all of you here. You chose to join us, not to stay in the beer gardens during the beautiful, beautiful weather. I think it's going to be quite intriguing evening. So the Women in Focus series introduces really quite inspiring female personalities and presenting their accomplished professional lives and also sharing some of their personal experiences. And in today's edition, I think we're going to have quite topical theme, which is on well-being, on mental health, on alternative medical healing and treatment, such as the centuries-old shamanic rituals and ceremonies. And I'm very pleased that I can welcome here with us this evening Juliet Vopěnka Navrátilová. I have to say a woman of many virtues. Juliet is an author. Wrote two books. One of the book is here, but most importantly, other books are there, and I think you can purchase them for, I'm sure, for a very special price. But Juliet is also a shamanic practitioner, blue badge guide. And if I understand correctly, she's becoming a PhD student of anthropology. Not yet. Perspective, just to keep her busy. So Juliet will share her transformative journey from illness and emotional struggle to healing and empowerment, offering deeply personal and spiritual reflections on living with extreme sensitivity, and also will share her experiences from traveling through Latin America and Amazon jungle. I would also like to say that the evening will be divided in three parts. The first initial part will be some opening remarks by Juliet. In the second part, Juliet will be joined in a dialogue discussion with Susan Edwards here, who is an author by herself of a number of books on spirituality and shamanism, and she's specializing also on shamanic healing. And the third part of the evening, of course, will be the Q&A with all of you here. So thank you for joining us. Enjoy the evening, and Juliet, the floor is yours.
Thank you. As you say, I'm a blue badge guide, so I'm used to talking to people who are like in crowds in the middle of Parliament Square. I have to project my voice, so I tend to speak very loudly. And to the anthropology, I'm a medical anthropologist in becoming, so I'm just finishing my Master of Science in Medical Anthropology. But PhD is going to be the next, because I love it. So I would like to first of all thank to the Czech Center for having me here. I would like to thank you for coming, and I would like to thank to Zdenka, where is she, for your support and for recommending me to Přemysl. And I would like to thank to Přemysl for his bravery, because not that I am not an inspirational figure, but my topics tend to be quite not mainstream. So, but at the same time, I found myself to be a bridge between two worlds. So, as said, I'm a shamanic practitioner, but also I like academia. I'm a very analytical, logical person, and a very successful blue badge guide professional. And so in the 20 years in London, I always lived a double life. And I've just told you, I was the spiritual person, and people knew me as the spiritual person, as the healer, as the very sensitive person, and I was a professional, and people knew me from my guiding, and they had no idea that I have a secret life, or the other life. And so I will be talking about the secret life of an empath, of an intuitive empath. And before I start to tell you about my life, then let me actually tell you what is an empath, what is an intuitive empath. It is not just being empathic. There is a difference. And maybe I'll start with telling you about the concept of hypersensitivity and the construct of an empath. So there is about 20% of population, of human population, as well as about 100 other species who are, so to speak, highly sensitive people. And they are highly sensitive people because they have a certain personality trait. And this trait is, for example, depth of processing, overstimulation, emotional reactivity like empathy, and sensing the subtle. In other words, maybe speaking of myself, they are over-analytical, empathic drama queens who sense that the earth is spinning. And I'm not exaggerating. Being an empath is basically the most sensitive of the most sensitive, on the furthest side of the spectrum of sensitivity. It is a concept coined, named as a term, as an empath, by an American psychiatrist, Judith Orloff. And basically, it's not that empaths are just highly sensitive persons with the attributes I've mentioned, but they also tend to absorb, they're like sponges, other people's emotions and physical pains even. And they also have very good intuition, and hence the intuitive empath. So intuitive empath, in my case at least, is that I sense, I feel the solar flares before they report it. When then, a couple of days later, there are geomagnetic storms, even without knowing that they are happening, occurring, then I feel unwell. I used to, as a child, feel unwell when someone else was unwell. I feel so much that it's sometimes really hard to be in this world. But I'm talking about, I named it for myself, illiterate empath. Empath who doesn't know what to do with himself or herself. And my journey that is described in this book is to become a literate empath, an empowered empath. And so this journey, and it's in the title of the book, it's a journey from z nemoci do moci in Czech. It's very hard to explain in English because that's this beauty of this Czech word that nemocný, meaning being ill, means without the ne, without the negative, mocný, powerful. So it's a journey from being powerless to powerful. And at the same time, it's a journey of metamorphoses. So, because if you're doing well, if you're happy in your consumerist life, then you might be lucky enough to remain in this ignorance for the rest of your life. But if you're not lucky enough, or fortunate enough, depending how you see it, then you realize that you've just been a larvae, you've just been a caterpillar, and it's time, and you're also, the circumstances make you to just die in order to be reborn again. And so I had a very successful life in London, but I was very sensitive, and it was always a nuisance, a burden. And so I also had premonitions. That's also very typical for an empath. I will explain what the intuition is about, in particularly the non-local intuition. So you see, HeartMath Institute, which is a scientific body in the US, they researched heart, and they show us that the electromagnetic field of the heart is over 100 times stronger than of the brain. So, and the field goes way, way beyond the body, beyond the boundaries of the body. And so we, or our heart, picks up signals from other people's fields, but not only other people's, but other fields. And these signals are emotional information, and this information goes into the heart and then goes up to the brain. And this information, this knowledge, is intuition. And so intuition is the primary language of your heart. And the empaths particularly are susceptible to these signals. But now I'm not only talking about your electromagnetic fields, and I do feel you also very strongly if I allow myself, because now I'm the literate one, and so I can create a kind of like a protection, just a boundary. But there are also other fields, or other than human consciousnesses in anthropological terms, and they are far, far away, and they can be on the other side of the globe, but we can feel them as well. And you see, I study anthropology, and I focus in anthropology on other than human consciousness and this subject, because, like I said, I'm not just a spiritual person perceiving, feeling, experiencing, but I'm also like you. And so I am very much like you. And what I do and what I feel, it's not supernatural. You know, telepathy and clairvoyance, I don't find it supernatural. I just tap into that field. And so I find myself to be a bridge between these two worlds. And so, you know, I'm learning to explain this for normal people. So, because I don't want to be judged as a hippie, or ezo in Czech. Because I'm really grounded, very grounded. And that's the key also, because many spiritual people are just really floating out there. And I think part of the journey from powerless to powerful is learning to be in the body. And that's also the journey of the heart. And so on my journey, I learned all these tricks and things. And when I became seriously ill, then I was pushed to learn even more. And so I had to stop being a caterpillar. And then I created a chrysalis, a cocoon for myself for about 5 years while I was being a blue badge guide, and learned. I went to Latin America. I did many ceremonies with shamans all over Latin America, and detoxes, and I detoxed myself into even bigger sensitivity. Oh my God. And I had to learn to be with this. Now, I told you I was very sensitive as a child, but it really all started when I was 19, when I had my first premonition that my brother will die. I was already living abroad in Berlin, and I had a panic attack, and I was shaking and crying that my brother is dead. I had no reason whatsoever. And then within a week he died. And I had premonitions like this about natural disasters, even how many people will die, what kind of catastrophe will happen. And I'm not saying this here to boast, because there's nothing to boast about. It's just a testament. And in fact, here today, I'm coming out of closet, because I don't talk about these things. And you don't see an academic who talks about these things. But I think it's time to really talk about this, because, again, this is not supernatural. It's just natural, but we don't understand it. And this is the problem of today's science, that with their materialistic Cartesian approach, their diagnostic tools are not quite useful. And yes, so I started with my shamanic training almost 20 years ago with my friend Suzanne, who will be joining me for to do a dialogue together. And we were learning to get to know our power animals. Power animal is a helping spirit. And my power animal was a wolf, and in the altered state of consciousness, induced by drumming, we were supposed to allow our power animal to dismember us, to tear us into pieces. Hello, Jason. And I don't know this guy, but I know a certain Jason is running late because of Central Line. So, and this power animal, this wolf, torn me in pieces. And very shortly afterwards, something happened to me. I was followed by a gang in Hanwell. And nothing happened to me. But I started having symptoms, like my hands started swelling. I was very, very cold. And the doctors diagnosed it as Raynaud's syndrome and rheumatoid arthritis. And it got worse. I worked in Trailfinders, and the office environment didn't do me really well to my sensitivity. And then it escalated. I left Trailfinders, then I worked in the prison, then I was an estate agent, and it escalated. When I was 31 years old, I was diagnosed with lupus, and the doctor said, actually, you already started having lupus all these 5 years ago, when you had rheumatoid arthritis. That is a sign, this is a symptom of lupus. And I didn't understand for many years. And it is amazing, because lupus in Latin means wolf. So I was actually physically, in reality, dismembered by my wolf. And that was the start of this autoimmune process. And so I used this metamorphosis in my book when I talk about my story, because when the caterpillar had enough, in a way, it's just she's starting switching off, and when she builds her chrysalis, then she starts falling apart. And it is like an autoimmune-like process when her cell tissues are starting to turn into like a mushy soup. So she can then be reborn from this cell tissue, can be wings, can she grow wings and legs. And so for those 5 years, and thanks to my anthropology study that I started 10 years ago with social anthropology, I understood that those 5 years, this chrysalis, was a rite of passage. Rite of passage means that you go from, traditionally in traditional societies, from a child, you are initiated into adulthood, etc. And so I was being initiated into something. And then only later, while studying further anthropology and being interested in shamanism, I realized, yes, actually, my lupus is a shamanic illness. And I started seriously seeing it as a calling. And so I had to stop being who I was. And I had to learn, I was pushed to be a new Juliet. And so those 5 years, this cleansing, and please do stop me if I talk too much, because I'm a blue badge guide, used to London traffic, having monologue for 5 hours. So I went to the Amazon. I did, for example, a tobacco diet, where for the whole week I didn't eat anything, I didn't talk to anyone. Suzanne did it as well, didn't you? It's crazy, isn't it? It's wonderful. I'd recommend to everyone. You just vomit the whole day. Then the tobacco shaman comes to your hut every day, gives you tobacco juice. You vomit in front of him. He smokes mapacho, which is nicotiana rustica, which is like a cigar, 9 times stronger than in nicotine than a cigarette. And then you vomit again, and then you just vomit and vomit and vomit and want to die, and then you die eventually somehow on some level. And that was one of the moments that really changed my life, when I really just stopped being and I became part of everything. And now I will, for half a minute, sound a bit like a hippie, but I just connected and became a drop of the rain. I became the soil, I became the tree, I became the stars, I became God. Now this is not a blasphemy. This is a really intense experience that is very difficult to describe, but it's so life-changing that life cannot be ever again the same. But I had other really strong experiences. Ayahuasca, for example, did loads of ayahuasca. It helped me to see the truth that, again, I thought I know who I am, but who I thought I was just an identity created by circumstances, upbringing, etc. And because of this crust, I couldn't come out. And so this crust had to be broken. And so my ego had a big lesson. I experienced near-death experience when I was doing a San Pedro, which is a cactus ceremony. I kind of overdosed, because that's what happens if you don't know that you're very sensitive. And again, it was wonderful. I wish everyone to die at some point in your life. I don't wish you anything bad, but it is really a reset and you start again. And again, you know, I lived from this experience. I traveled throughout Latin America for 2 winters. Another life-changing moment, maybe not so big, but I happened to be on a volcano in Nicaragua and swarms of bees came. I was there with another 40 people, and thousands of bees everywhere suddenly for no reason. There was nothing growing there, just us. And I thought, I wonder what it would be like if they sit only on one person. And within a minute they all sat on me. And it was amazing. And I had to meditate not to panic. And then I opened my eyes and my clothes was heavy, and really thousands of bees were occupying my personal space, and it was amazing. I felt them so strongly. They were so warm, and I communicated with them. And ever since, again, I don't want to sound like, whoa, look what I can, but it's just, again, it's natural that if you really focus, if I focus on animals and connect with the consciousness, with the collective consciousness of the animals, then they come. And it's only because I ask. And so, again, it's nothing supernatural. I had a ceremony with a grandmother, Mazatec grandmother in southern Mexico in the mountains, Abuela Julieta, and I ate some magic mushrooms with her. And so I was telling you about the sensitivity of an empath when I focus outwards. Then this helped me to focus inwards, and I saw all my cells, trillions of cells with eyes and smiling at me and waving, "Oh, end of the civil war, hooray!" And that was the start of my healing. But it wasn't quite, I couldn't take it for granted, because then the biggest lesson arrived when I came back to London, that psychedelics or other alternative help, or doctors or healers, they are external helpers, and they just show you the way. Psychedelics offered me to experience my potential and to experience what is it like to be really, really extremely wonderfully healthy. And then they kick you out, and off you land on London streets, and then you have to walk alone. And that took some time as well. And so, which way to go if you're suddenly alone? The only way is to go inwards, to go into your heart. And so, this is how my story somehow unfolded and then brought me back. And this is what I what I do for people. This is my contribution. So I teach people, empaths, or people who are very sensitive, how to take care of themselves, how to set clear boundaries, how to cleanse themselves, and how to, in case they forgot, as many people forgot in their lifetime, how to go into their heart, into their intuition, because everyone can connect with that. What's the time? You don't need to go to your allotments or anything, sunshine. No, please, you don't. So, I have no idea what the time is. Do you think I spoke about half an hour?
Yes.
Okay.
It's 7:30, Juliet.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. A blue badge guide, a blue badge guide. I would like to say it's wonderful that we have blue badge guides here. We have anthropologists here. We have shamanic practitioners here. We have the whole family here. It's wonderful. And we also have, maybe some people came from the street, walk-ins? No? But wonderful. And friends and people I don't know. And I have my fencing tutor here as well. So, yes, it's wonderful to have you here. So I would like to invite my dear friend Suzanne Edwards, a fellow empath and fellow shamanic practitioner, to join me for a dialogue. And so it doesn't have to be an interview. It's just we can chat, we can talk, because I told you about my medicine that I bring to people, medicine of my heart. But Suzanne's medicine is very exciting. It's the dreams.
Ooh.
So yeah.
Okay.
Do you want to maybe say first something about yourself?
Okay, all right. So I've known Juliet for about 20 years, and we met through doing sort of neo-shamanic training, and we've managed to stay in touch all this time. We've even been in Peru at the same time together, and it's been fascinating. So we just have a lot of similar interests, or our paths have kind of had a tandem thing going, even if we've been in different locations. But I've got a huge interest in neo-shamanism, like the modern interpretation, but also Aztec and Mexican shamanism has been a big part of my path as well. And more recently I've become quite obsessed with dreaming in the ancient world, and how the ancients worked with dreams. So that's in shamanic cultures, but also cultures like ancient Greece. I've just come back from Greece literally today and visited some dream temples. So that's been amazing. And yeah, thank you, Juliet, for inviting me this evening. So yeah, I just want to ask you some questions. So thank you for sharing your incredible experiences. So you've obviously been through quite a profound journey with illness. And so I wanted to ask you, do you identify with the idea of the wounded healer with your work? Do you have an opinion about that?
Wounded healer. I understand what a wounded healer is. Well, it's a healer that is wounded, obviously, but it's what shamans tend to be, and that actually goes back to having a shamanic illness. So if in the indigenous societies, a person was supposed to be a shaman, then he would either get very sick, or he would meet really difficult obstacles, and so that would be a sign that he is the one who is supposed to be a shaman. And so unfortunately for us today, we don't have the elder shamans who would teach us the ways. We just get sick, and then if we are very unlucky, would end up in a hospital, immunosuppressed, and just not hearing ourselves because we are so dulled by medication. But you see, I felt my heart already when I was young, and so I followed my heart when I was offered medication, and that's why my journey is as it is. But to the wounded healer as well, I had some deep wounds from my childhood, and actually have quite a lot on my plate. And that helps me when I work with people, because I feel the compassion, and so I think it's important, or it's part of the job being a wounded healer, if I say. But it doesn't mean that we are victims, but we're just empowered, wounded healers.
Okay, thank you. I was also struck by what you said about how you realised you're an empath when you had the premonition about your brother passing, but you also had like the death initiation with San Pedro, and in a lot of traditions they talk about shamans being closer to the world of spirit and of the land of the dead as well. So do you feel that there's a connection between your life path and that connection with the other side, having gone through those experiences?
Well, definitely. I think it's part of the job as well. I have actually experienced 3 types of death, and that's why I wear these 3 feathers. It's not just, to be fanciful and trendy. I have 3 feathers because it's to myself as a reminder. I told you about one death on San Pedro, but also tobacco diet was a form of spiritual death. And then also when I was really so sensitive and I became a moon dancer 10 years ago, which is I wouldn't say it's an ancient tradition, because it is not, but it's a revived movement that started in the 80s, and the grandmothers, the Mexican abuelas, they followed their dreams and visions and learned or read the codexes, the manuscripts, and created this wonderful dance for women. And I reacted to this dance very extremely, and I didn't sleep properly for 3 years because of the full moon, and the moon generally just had such an impact on me. And each full moon was like a death in a way, and then again and again. And the 3rd death that I have experienced, which I call a mental death, was when I was just so exhausted from not sleeping that I just dropped one night, and I was really out of my mind, which I guess is the point. And I really felt like there is no matter, and there's no time. If you imagine the timeline as this being the present moment, and then it's the past and it's the future, shifted like this. And I know you read about this a lot in spiritual books, but to experience it is really freaking. And that changed me as well. And so, yes, death is in a way a companion. And my brother, I think, opened the gate for me.
Yeah, wow. Okay, and so you said you also had a lot of premonitions about your brother, but many other things like natural disasters, all sorts of things, personal people you knew around you. How did you experience the premonitions? Because different people can receive that information differently. They can sense it in the body, they can have dreams, clairvoyant visions, just a knowing. How was it for you?
Yes, this is a good question, because when I get something from that is non-local, then I just know. It just comes as a knowing, an image or just information, accompanied by a bodily feeling. I also haven't mentioned, and quite reluctant to mention that, because then I don't want to be judged. But no, I said I'm coming out of closet, so I feel deceased people. And my brother, when he died, he was still with me. I sensed him. I felt how he sits next to me, and I felt and I saw an image of his sad face. And so this is also part of my reality. But I can also block this out. It's not that, I feel dead people everywhere, because they are everywhere, especially in London. But it's just I somehow see it. But if I close my eyes, if we talk about energy, if I close my eyes, then I can see vibration. But sometimes with my open eyes as well. And I can tell you very quickly a funny story. Well, it's not very funny, but unusual. So when I worked in the prison, Her Majesty's Prison Wandsworth for NHS, then I sensed loads of dead people in one particular wing. In fact, I was promoted after a while, and I got my own office, a former cell. It's an old Victorian prison, and right next door, they executed people until 1969 by hanging. And now it's a restroom for the officers, for the guards, and a little kitchen. And so I felt these deceased people, and so using my shamanic techniques, I helped them to depart properly. So, but how I sense it is, I sense it in my body, and as an image, and sometimes I see it, but it's more like an inner vision.
Okay, very interesting. What's your opinion about, because obviously you lived a life where probably when you were a child we didn't have the internet, we didn't have smartphones, we didn't have remotely the technology and the things that we have now. As you've lived your life and you've seen all those things develop rapidly, how do you feel that's affected your sensitivity or what you pick up on? Do you notice the difference?
Well, that is a brilliant question, because I do feel like in a prison sometimes when I sense all these electromagnetic frequencies, and at the highest point of my sensitivity, which thank God after all this cleansing in the jungle, etc., it's not as much. I saw, like when I was then in London, back in London from little Latin America, I saw all these waves, and it really is everywhere, and I feel it, and I had to adapt my lifestyle to it, and certain protective strategies. And once when it was really bad and I couldn't sleep because of the full moon, I went to Peru on another trip, and I did a ceremony with San Pedro, and I said to San Pedro, please help me, like relieve me of all this EMF, electromagnetic frequencies. And the next day I was robbed, and they took everything, my laptop, my phone, my iPod, my iPad, my cards, my money, and I was relieved. It was wonderful. It was terrible. My friend Lawrence had to send me money because I had nothing, only clothes. But it was a great experience, and so then I realized that actually, yes, I'm always with my phone. And so when I'm somewhere, I have to switch off everything. I have to switch off the fridge if I'm in an accommodation. I have to switch off the Wi-Fi, and phones are not allowed to be in the room. And so, yes, and that is part of being literate in this way, to learn how to cope, because it is hardcore. How do you feel about it? Because you're an empath yourself.
I think I didn't realise the effect, and I'm starting to wake up to it more now. So I'm sort of more conscious of it now, and just making sure, even though I live in London, making sure I spend plenty of time in nature to help. It helps clear your energy field, basically. And there's lots of things to think about. Yeah.
Well, I would like to ask, if I may,
go on.
How do you contribute with your sensitivity? Where does it take you?
What do you mean contribute?
Well, you've mentioned dreaming. Now,
yeah.
What is this about? Because one has to be also very sensitive and conscious of one's dreams.
Well,
so what do you do?
So I think dreams are brilliant for like giving you guidance about your life and seeing where you are emotionally, where you might need healing, but you can also receive direct information as if you're consulting an oracle as well. But I've got a particular sensitivity with dreaming, so which isn't always fun, which is if I sleep in someone else's bed, I can sort of see what problems they have. It's like I pick up on the energy, but you can use dreams for really, really brilliant things, like anything actually. You can ask a question and then go to sleep, and you may get some sort of answer that night, or it might take a couple of days, because the dreamland doesn't really have time like we have here in the 3D. So you can also manifest with dreams. You want to try and change the trajectory of your life, and the Aztecs and Toltecs, for instance, actually had specific techniques for that. So there's huge scope in dreaming, and it's even training for death as well, like lucid dreaming, because they say that when you lose consciousness as you fall asleep, it's the same process when you die, apparently, and if you believe in reincarnation or any kind of life after this life, then it's going to benefit you massively. So it's a lot to go into, to be honest, but there's a huge scope, actually, for it.
Just wonderful. Just to legitimize a little bit this topic, this other consciousness. Now, when I talk about non-local intuition, so it's basically information that comes through this interconnectedness of everything in the universe, and you can. It is similar to, because you reminded me, it is similar to the collective unconscious of Carl Gustav Jung, the Swiss psychologist, the founder of analytical psychology, or also to Rupert Sheldrake's, who is a biochemist, English biochemist, who calls this resonance, morphic resonance, or the Hungarian-American philosopher of science, Erwin Laszlo, he calls it quantum consciousness. So really, this is not something that is just, some esoteric people just, use. It's widely researched and described.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the Aztec knew already a long time ago.
Yes.
We are only learning to describe it. Describe that's part of our existence, yet not seen by most of the people. So, great. Well, how are we doing with timing?
Good. Open for some questions.
Yeah, let's do. Do you have any more questions?
I've got one more question.
Oh, come on now.
What tips would you have for anyone that's struggling with sensitivity or they're a strong empath?
Brilliant. Very good question. So, the empaths, or highly sensitive persons, have just two big hearts that they just would give everything to. They're big givers, and sometimes they forget themselves. And that's exactly what I said when an empath absorbs people's problems, or like you said, you feel people's illnesses when you sleep in their bed. So it's important to really know yourself. That's why to go inwards and know who you are, because then you can differentiate what is yours and what is not. And that's the first step. And then is to set clear boundaries and detox, cleanse, be healthy. And unfortunately with this, well, you see it as a burden or a gift. It's a coin with two sides. But that's why you have to really learn to take care of yourself in a very specific way, like I've mentioned. But sleep regularly, eat regularly, don't take the tube during the rush hour, try to cycle if you can. If you're really sensitive empath, just get out of London, get out to the country, have chickens and be in nature, because it's very difficult not to be sucked into the London's energy, because it's really, really hardcore. And I had to negotiate it as well. First, I became outside London Blue Badge Guide. So I guided in the country, and I love power places. I feel the consciousness of landscapes and the places, and so I, in fact, wrote my dissertation work in social anthropology about the consciousness of the places, of the landscapes. And then I guided in the country in the southwest of England and lived in London. And then I had to get out of London as well. I had to just stop being a Londoner and get out, and then only visit London very carefully on empty trains. Well, I'm exaggerating, but just I don't take the tube. I cycle everywhere in London. I've always have done. And when I feel overwhelmed, overstimulated, I go to water. I am with water. I swim in water. I dunk into water. It's a very important element. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your wonderful, very good questions. And so, yes, let's ask the audience.
I'd like to share a story with everybody here today. I've known Juliet for many years, I guess. And I just want to say, I have a restaurant, and I'm not, I don't know, spiritual, I guess. Maybe I am, but I never viewed myself as being spiritual or believing in another life, another world. And I want to share a story. I have a restaurant, and I took the restaurant over because the last person in the restaurant was murdered in the restaurant. And nobody knew this. And the restaurant opened, and two of my staff would say to me, Lawrence, Ray, the guy who was murdered, is here. He's not happy. He's causing trouble. And this went on for weeks, and I'm like, yeah, whatever, it's just a ghost, don't worry about it. You know, what's a ghost? You know, it's another world, whatever. And then totally independent of this, Juliet turns up one day. She said, Lawrence, you've got some bad energy here. We need a cleansing. I don't know if you remember this, and she turns up with this a tambourine without the bells, I don't know what you call it, that kind of drum thing that you turn up with, and we burnt some rosemary, I think, and something, and we chanted some stuff, and I did this little dance by banging this drum around the restaurant, and my restaurant was a window as big as that screen, so everybody walking past could see two people burning incense or whatever it was, and you know, and actually the staff didn't know this was going on, this happened, and then that weekend the staff said to me, totally independent, wow, Ray's gone, it's clear. I just want to share that because actually maybe there's something to this, because you never met the staff, or that time they didn't meet you, but something was bothering them, and it worked. So I just want to share that. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I forgot all about this. Yes, that's also part of my job. I take care of the places because, like I said, I sense the spirit of the place, the consciousness of the place, of the landscape of the house. It's all alive to me, and yes, I sense it, and I have tools, and that's what also people call me for, not just for the shamanic work to help them, but to help their homes. And so yes, that's what I do. I cleanse people, take care of the people, and always do it with the resident, because I help them to create a relationship between the house they live in, and often it affects each other. The person affects the space, and the space affects the person. Do you have experience as well like this with spaces?
Sometimes, yeah. Yeah, sometimes places just feel heavy, so you could have like a really big room, but somehow it feels like suffocated, if you know what I mean. And then through like sound, or sometimes with crystals, things can just clear, and you can't see it, but you just feel like suddenly the room feels like it's double the size.
I had this big ambition. I was very naive to clean Her Majesty's Prison Wandsworth completely. And so when I did my job, I was locked in my office. We had to lock ourselves in our offices. And then I did this clearing, this cleansing. I didn't have any tools. I couldn't bring a drum or smoke to my work. But I worked with this space. And once I did a really amazing job, I was very proud of myself, because I really, really felt like something lifted, at least on the second floor of my wing. And I left the office, and an hour after the work, and it's a lovely coincidence, the prisoners started pulling the pipes, the water pipes, right next to my office and breaking them, and it caused a huge flood. And then there were some fights, and I was just like thinking, oh, that's interesting. Water is cleansing, and so these things happen. And again, I'm not saying anything. It's just nice coincidence that this happened. But yes, the places, the spaces, the landscapes, they are alive, and we have to take care of them. We can't just use them, abuse them, like we do with Earth. Another question.
Do you see it?
Okay. Do you ever have any sense of like good and bad in this work? And like you're in prison, is there anything adversarial? There's a force there that you're trying to compete with that might or might not win? Do you see things in those terms at all?
Well, you see, the indigenous shamanism, the real shamanism, doesn't have any good and bad. It just is. It's nature. It's the force of nature, and we tend to label it, obviously, Christianity, our background, Christian background, whether we believers or not. We are born into this concept of good and bad. All I do simply is how I feel it. Do I feel it's nice, it's energy enhancing, can I thrive or not? And if not, then what I can do about it and try to transform it. But it's not strictly seeing it as good and bad. I've also learned on this journey to become empowered person, empath, not to judge people. And it was quite a difficult job, because in the Czech Republic, in Moravia, I don't want to be too judgmental, but in Hana, it's quite a hobby to judge constantly. And I was born into this, and I had to relearn this. And also, after all this that happened to me, especially after the tobacco diet, the connection with everything, I do feel part of you. I feel you. And I don't want to judge you, because you're part of me, and I love myself as far as I'm concerned. And so it's very relieving that I don't have to judge anymore. It was quite, it's quite energy costing. And so when I go somewhere and someone says, oh, she's a cow, or look at her, I don't see it anymore. It's just not there. And so, yes, good and bad, no.
Hello, I have a question. So when you feel that something is going to happen, and sometimes you said it was a week or few days ahead, can it be prevented?
Yes, good question. No, it cannot. I had a really hard time with understanding this. I don't know exactly the postcode, but I had to learn just to accept this and just send some light and love and support. And when I couldn't sleep all these years, that's what I did most of the nights. I worked and I channeled. And that's all I could do. Now, it can be helpful, because if I feel that someone from my inner circle, like my grandparents, for example, had a message that they will die that particular year, then I couldn't tell anyone, but I just spent loads of time with them and really enjoyed them. And then I thought, oh, I was wrong, because it was already Christmas and they were still alive. But then my grandmother suddenly just died of COVID a few days before the New Year's Eve, and my granddad lost his mind and is lost. He's alive, but he's got Alzheimer's, so in a way he died. So yeah, that's kind of a burden that you just cannot tell anyone.
Thank you. I have one more question. When you feel the energy, sometimes in a house, in a room, in a bed, would you recommend to wear second-hand jewelry, clothes, or do you think that it brings the energy from the previous person to your life?
I don't know, actually. I think it definitely contains their energy, but there's different opinions about whether you can cleanse the energy completely. So there's techniques like smudging, water, depending on the object. So you can use sage or like rosemary you were talking about earlier. But then if you still, I think you have to use your sense, like, is this not good for me? You know, so it's about developing your own intuition about what's good for you and what isn't. And if you feel like someone gave you drawing, it's like amazing, like cleanse it first and then see how you feel with it. But yeah, I think you have to sort of feel for yourself as well. What do you think?
I also cleanse everything. Sometimes we have a visitor at home and I don't feel it right. My husband is also very sensitive, although he says he's not. But he's got a brilliant intuition that I just smudge. I use copal, which is a resin from a pine tree. It's very, very powerful. And your question was particularly about jewelry. I believe anything can be cleansed. So, but yeah, I mean, you have to try and see. Rupert, you wanted to?
Sorry, I've got the microphone.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Oh, no, Karen.
You sure?
You'll be next.
So I first wanted to say thank you for everything that you've shared so far, as well as Suzanne as well. And I also work in HMP Wandsworth. So when you mentioned that you work in a prison service, I was like, it can't be Wandsworth. And then you said that, and I was like, wow. And when you mentioned about the that you were able to help the people like move on, I actually stopped crying because I felt that connection. It was so beautiful to hear that. I've been there for 9 years, so it's very challenging as a prison officer. And yes, I wanted to share that. But I also have a question. I really enjoyed hearing about the non-judgment, and it's something that I'm working on or struggling with in this moment, for a while, but yeah, really wanting to work on that. And I think it's coming from culture, from Romania, but also like growing up. And I can see how much is holding on to, or how much is burdening me. And so I want to ask, in what ways have you tried, and what you've done to kind of help with that? That would be helpful and useful. Thank you.
Wow, thank you for sharing. Well, now the whole prison will know. Oh, okay, well, so yes, don't be too hard on yourself. Don't try to work, too hard. We do what we can do. I can give you a tip. When I went through the gate, you have to give everything, your phone, everything. And then I put my stones and I put my spiritual protection, that I felt like I'm a shining ball coming right into the prison and shining at everyone, and the officers were like smiling at me, and it's just wonderful. And there is a really nice community there, and it is like a community within, it's like a society within this. I really enjoyed working there, having my keys and just walking around. But what I want to say is I was on the wing E and worked in F with the drug addicts, and I went through the wing of the sexual offenders only once, and it made me sick because of my own wounds. And of course I judged them because it triggered my own traumas. But that work waited a decade to be worked on. And so that's why don't be hard on yourself and don't try to figure it all out right away. It will come. The good thing is that you are aware of this and that you just do what you can. But really, it is so simple to create a protection, you know. You just have to think of that, and it works.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry. Can I just ask, do you feel there's a difference between masculine and feminine in terms of shamanism, and kind of like how do you reflect on that and the different way it works? And the second thing is, what did fencing bring to you? That's just a personal thing. Okay?
Oh, got another dichotomy, duality. I don't see it as masculine and feminine, two opposing sides. I see it, and I think maybe, who said it? Someone in Tao, Lao Tse maybe, or someone who said that the masculine is the mountain and the feminine is the ocean surrounding it. And so the mountain knows that it's mountain thanks to the sea, and the sea knows that it's an ocean thanks to the mountain. And so it's more interweaving and complementing. And yes, of course, I had to learn these sides. That's important. I wanted to be a boy, I wanted to be a soldier, and I wanted to go to war and kill people. That was when I was 19 years old. So it's quite a journey. and I had to learn to be a woman, and that was part of the problem for me, that I was sick because I behaved like a man in the way that I was very like going out there and forgetting going inside. And so that could be described as the attributes of the feminine energy of being inside and caring. And so I had to learn this, and I learned this on the moon dance. And fencing asks the fencing teacher. So I always wanted to do fencing. I am this kind of warrior inside. When I was a little girl, I was quite good with a short Roman sword, because my father makes weapons, and so I learned with the sword, kind of sword fighting. And but fencing, well, some months ago, before I started, we watched the Olympics, my husband and children, and I just said, yeah, I'm going to be a fencer in the next Olympic Games. And 2 months later, I signed up and started fencing, and I love it, and I promise I will continue. Yes, that's not the end of me yet.
I have a question, maybe. I'm Gerard. Thank you for your words. It's very nice. I was thinking about this more about how we deal with all this being in London and our particular works and our particular life. Because I have a very perhaps analytical work and mind in most of the time, but that does not encapsulate us many times. And I was thinking, we talked about how you deal, for instance, in London. It's a very general concept, but you talked about going out and connecting with nature, and which I think it's very, I would love to do that, but sometimes when you're dealing with everyday life and everyday challenges, because of whatever reasons, you cannot do that so often. And this concept of finding peace inwards is something that I like to work on, perhaps too hard on yourself, to tell yourself, oh, you should be able to be peaceful and connect with yourself anytime, doesn't matter where you are. You have to have this feeling all the time to be, really in the moment. So in that sense, I wanted to ask if you have any more of like practical tips of this kind of inner dialogue with yourself to keep this feeling, even if you cannot be connected more physically with things that can help you. Thanks.
Yes, of course you can. London is very green. It's got many parks, and so just go to a tree, but you don't have to hug it. Just sit by a tree, and the most important thing, but again, you don't even have to go to a tree. You can go to a quiet place in your home. You can go to the toilet if you need to hide away from people, and just focus on your breath. Breath is the biggest medicine that we have. And when I teach my clients, being the guide to the heart, then first of all, breathe yourself into your body. And you can use yoga nidra. You're the yoga nidra teacher. So that means basically that you focus your breath and you breathe into your left arm and your fingers and breathe yourself into your body, because that is the way to your heart. And then you can breathe into your heart and just listen. And if you feel something, it's very important. I mean, many people meditate for decades, but they're not in their body. And so that is the first step. And learn the language of your body. And so, like I said, emotions, that's the language, or intuition, that's how you hear it in your body, in your heart. And it's by sensing it, the sensation. I feel vibration here. It's like tinkling. It's very nice. And I learned to breathe in here and breathe out. So it's like a second nature. I don't think about it. If I don't feel tingling here, then I immediately go back. And then I see in the world through the heart. It's like there's a window. And I see, and so that's it's like intuition is like a sat-nav, like a line detector. I feel like a walking line detector. By having this alive, I can see when person says the truth, because I sense it, I feel it. And so, is that what you would you recommend? If you cannot be in nature, what to do?
Breathing, yeah, is a really good one. Breathing's a really good one, and I guess like knowing what things wind you up and what things help your life make easier. But we can't always control everything, can we? It just happens. And I think it's good to find whatever works for you to help you feel peaceful, like if there's certain types of exercise or meditation or breathing, dancing. But also, I'm a great believer that if sometimes things agitate you, that's all right as well, because it's natural to feel emotions, and sometimes they're a good indicator of things for you as well, about what's good and what's not for you too.
Thanks very much. I was just, I like your story about that you got this label of an autoimmune disease, and then, you kind of contributed to you become the new you and the metamorphoses. I think that's what you used. And So the autoimmune disease is almost the body's fighting itself, really, isn't it? You know, and you say you're kind of doing masters in medical anthropology. So how about other kind of labels? You know, cancer and all that stuff. How do you look at that?
That is an important question because I see illnesses as a language of my body telling me something, and often because we are not in our bodies, we only hear the extreme shouting that is presented by an illness, and so any illness is an information, and so I never, when I was really ill, took any immunosuppressants because, like corticosteroids, because I wanted to hear myself. But having said that, I'm not saying that people should not take the medication. It's really up to everyone. I see if any medication is taken for a period of time, then it's healing because it gives person time to figure out what's going on. But if it's taken long-termly, then I consider it a drug that just dulls the person. And so it is a life support when it's really serious, but then one should really not to get used to it. And so it is an information. Any illness is an information. And it's not easy at all to understand, to translate the information, but it's important to just listen. And the origin of the illness could be inherited from your ancestry, so it's not easy. But I on my journey I figured that there are 4 pillars pillars of detox, of cleansing, that are important to take into consideration, if possible all at once. And that is cleansing of the body, of course, very important. Cleansing of the heart, very important. Of the mind, absolutely. We create through our mind our world. And of the subconscious. And one pillar is not enough. And so, especially with illnesses, to engage with any modality that works with the subconscious is absolutely important, because there we find the information of the illness. What would you like to say about this?
About cancer specifically, there are I've heard different ideas and opinions about this, but a lot of healers think that it's unprocessed emotion, specifically guilt. I've heard that said a lot about cancer. But like you're saying, also there's literally physical and emotional detoxes that it depends obviously what stage it's at when you start to look at the healing, but that can help a lot. But from a shamanic perspective, something like cancer, see it as like an intruding spirit. So if you did something like a plant medicine journey, you might actually see it as a type of, almost like a type of extra spirit attachment that's attached itself to the person. So in terms of healing, if it's a situation where it's possible to actually get rid of that spirit from the person. But yeah, obviously it depends on each situation as well.
I would only add that there are so many different possible explanations depending on people's belief system and their concepts of health. And obviously, when I had that autoimmune disease label, then and the symptoms, then I learned over the years that it is loads of suppressed anger, unexpressed, completely disowned anger, and perfectionism that was just driving me to not to take care of my body, just going over what I was possibly able to do, but with my strong mind I still went. So like I became the guide of the year in practical exams, which like only normally get born British people. And I was the best, one of the best as a guide, and working with the most influential and richest people in Europe, because I was good. I'm not ashamed to say that I was good. That's bad. That was so bad for me to be so best, really. So I had to learn to be just comfortable in not being best, if it makes sense. And that's how I translated autoimmune disease and lupus, suppressed anger. Thank you.
No, thank you. If I might take perhaps the liberty of the last question. You mentioned in your opening remarks a few times the word reset through the tobacco ritual or the mushrooms, but maybe can you share some advice to do smaller resets, not traveling to Latin America, that you can do over weekends? You know, what would be kind of the approaches or exercises to do maybe not such a profound resets, but series of resets that might help you mentally?
Now, that is the best closing question ever, because I do not want to come across as a promoter of psychedelics. I learned it's like you don't know something, you just go and try and see what it does to you. And so it is very intense and hard medicine, the medicine plants, the psychedelics, and you don't need it. I mean, it's great, it opens you, but it could be too much sometimes. And so I came to the conclusion, and I learned to use more gentle methods, because I became more gentle with myself, and I realized that there is the power in the gentleness, in the kindness. And like I said, I would recommend if it's something that person is really just headed here, just to go away for the weekend, but alone. That is so important, to be alone. We keep running away from ourselves. But to be alone, switch off your phone, be alone in nature, and just sit under that tree and breathe, full stop. That is a great reset. What would you like to recommend?
What for plant medicine? I mean, it's all over the place, so you don't have to go to the jungle necessarily. But yeah, a bit similar to you in that with what I felt with plant medicine from my own experience and other people's, is it's if you feel a pull, I wouldn't necessarily go for it just because lots of other people are doing it. You know, it's like if you feel a calling or a kind of attraction to it, then I would say then the medicine might be compatible for you, or the right timing for you. But there are, I mean, yeah, it's obviously spread now. It's now an era where a lot of these medicines, whether they're from Europe or the Amazon or Africa, seem to be available quite widely. So, yeah.
Thank you, Suzanne. I would only add that yes, the plant medicine can help people to wake up, but I don't like cultural appropriation, and so I don't support taking ayahuasca here and taking their medicine to us. We have mushrooms. Go to the Czech Republic. We have loads of magic mushrooms, different varieties. It grows everywhere. I'm not saying that take the mushrooms and have a trip. No. Very importantly, create a sacred space. Be respectful. Call on the spirit. Ask for permission. Ask for permission of the land, of the place. So that's how it starts. We tend to just grab things because it's there, without any kind of anything behind it. But it's important to do this. And yes, I mean, we are actually ending with the mushrooms. We're ending with the magic mushrooms. I love it. because there was a Dr. Tomáš Páleníček here some years ago when I came here for the first time, and he talked about amazing official scientific research into mushrooms to help people with depression. So there's a loads of potential, but it can be done without as well, or at least prepare yourself, know yourself before you take that mushroom, so you're not lost. Thank you.
So great. I don't know what about you, but I do feel after those 90 minutes in very different energy in the room here. And I think if anyone had any doubts that if there is another world besides the normal world, I think we're pretty certain that there is. And I really would like to thank you for opening that door to the perhaps other world, the world of spirituality and all the things you've been discussing here. It's been a really fascinating evening, so I really would like to thank you, and please join me in the round of applause for quite very interesting and great evening.